Ryan and I were waiting and just kind of figuring out what to do while we wait to see what the playoff schedule will be like. And we're like, hey, let's start our mock draft Mondays a week early. We were initially going to start it on January 15th, but hey, while we're waiting here during this Sunday night football game, let's just do our first mock drafts now. So Ryan and I, we're going to do our first mock drafts of the 2024 NFL season. Going to actually all the way back, we did like a way too early mock draft like last summer. I don't know if you remember
Yeah,
doing it.
I do. Yeah.
We'll have to go do a review video. But it's going to be our first one of the 2024 off season here. 18 spots are picked, and now all 14 teams are that we know if we're going to be in the playoff. We're just waiting to see who's going to be hosting who will be the number 2 seed between the Dolphins and the Bills. So while we're waiting on that, we're going to start with our mock drafts. I'm going to do one, then we're going to do out another video. Go check out Ryan's mock draft as well. And so, Ryan, if you want to share your screen, we'll pull up PFF here. And
Let's do it.
We double checked. PFF has the first 18 picks up to date, and then we're going to be doing a kind of, I guess, just as they fall in place. If that's where they're going to be, go off their positional needs. So, starting off here, this is going to be the talk for the next month and a half. What is Chicago going to do with this first overall pick here? And I have been of the belief I think Justin Fields has played really well over the past couple of weeks. Honestly, ever since he returned from his injury, and he did not play the best game in Week 17 against the Packers. Only like 11 for 16 for 146 yards. Let me pull up what his rushing stats were actually. So I think that's going to be obviously another big factor is who do they value there on that. And he did all this with DJ Moore. Cole Kmet is also a really good tight end in the league, but he's not the elite tight end. I'd say he's above average. If they got another receiver, a number 2 wide receiver, I think that would just be absolutely phenomenal. And so this is where I do think that they're going to drop back 1 or 2 spots here, make sure that they secure Marvin Harrison Jr. And the team to me, I think that is going to trade up is I think it looks like Ron Rivera is going to be gone from the Washington Commanders. I think they're going to trade up just to ensure that they do get the pick. I think it won't take that much to move up. So I honestly am thinking if they do their second pick, then their second round pick as well. And then Chicago will then throw in a third round pick that they have. So it would be then pick number 74 from Chicago. I think that would be decently fair, just according to the points here overall. Actually, that might be a little bit lopsided, maybe a 4th rounder from Chicago. But I digress. We'll figure out the points there. I think that Washington will move up 1 spot just to go and get their guy. And to me, I mean, we've been making comparisons to Patrick Mahomes from the get-go. And if Eric Bieniemy is still there, he's played with Patrick Mahomes he coached with Patrick Mahomes for the longest of times. Caleb Williams he's had Patrick Mahomes comparison this entire time. I think he's the number 1 QB in the draft. It's very close. It is absolutely extremely close. So I'm going to go with Caleb Williams here. Washington's going to trade up. And then I'll imagine that division, though, with now you're going to have Caleb Williams, Daniel Jones, just joking, Jalen Hurts, and then Dak Prescott. I think he would be a perfect fit to this NFC East. Just every single team hates each other type rivalry. And honestly, too, you go look at that team right now. He had no offensive line at USC, and he performed really well. He's going to have no offensive line at Washington. So I'm assuming that he'll probably perform pretty well. But even then, you have Terry McLaurin that's there. You have Jahan Dotson. You have Curtis Samuel, Dammy Brown. Some of those guys, I need to go and double-check to see who is going to be hitting the free agency market. But still, there's going to be a lot of good pieces that are there. And I think they could potentially even add on a piece or maybe even add some tight end depth as well. So going to go with Caleb Williams first overall. Number 2, going to go with Marvin Harrison Jr. As I said, Justin Fields, I think, grew a lot this year, even with some injuries. And the team also grew. I mean, I remember where they were at from like week 3 when we were just trashing them for how poor the effort was against Kansas City. So how much they grew from then. Matt Eberflus, I think, even grew a little bit as well. I think they're going to stick with Justin Fields. You still do have him for at least another year. You don't have to take his 5th-year option if you want to give it a go. Then on top of that, let's say you don't move on, or you want to move on from Justin Fields after next year, then you're going to have Marvin Harrison Jr., DJ Moore. You're going to have Cole Kmet still. Decent running back room with Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnson as well. So I still think that team foundationally is built for success, including with how much they've improved on the offensive line and defensive line. Moving on to your Patriots here, I would love to troll you a little bit and go with an offensive line member from Chattanooga. But to be honest, though, I think it's too obvious in this situation here that Drake May. It is very possible Drake May goes 1 overall, in my opinion. I absolutely think that is possible. But just in this scenario right now with where we're at in the offseason, I want to do a little bit more scouting before I kind of find something that maybe changes my mind. But QB is obviously a huge need, and Drake May's significantly better than what is currently in that room right now. So moving on to Arizona here. I really like what I've seen from Arizona just as a whole, but also Kyler Murray as well. And they did that really without like just an absolute lethal threat for a receiving weapon. I like Hollywood Brown. I think that there is some potential with Michael Wilson. I also Rondell Moore, I think, has a lot of good traits. Trey McBride, I think, is going to develop into one of the better tight ends in the league. But I still think they need that just out-of-world, just amazing guy that just absolutely gives defensive coordinators nightmares week in and week out. And I think Malik Neighbors is going to be that guy. If it was for Marvin Harrison Jr., he would be the clear-cut, bona fide number 1 receiver in this class here. So Rome Odunze, Romeo, as I'm going to call him, I think he has separated himself from everybody else, but then he's going to be the clear number 3 in this class. While Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, Harrison Jr. to me is my number 1, but Neighbors is going to be like that 1B only because if it wasn't for Marvin Harrison Jr. So sitting here at the Chargers, there's a lot of different ways I think the Chargers could go here. But I also think that this is going to be a spot where if you look at the Chargers team, they actually lineup-wise have a pretty solid core. You have your franchise quarterback. You have, honestly, a decently solid offensive line. They can improve a little bit on the defensive line, and there's a lot of good defensive depth later on in the draft. But then you still have your studded Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack. You have your corner, Asante Samuel Jr. You have your left tackle, and Rashawn Slater. They probably going to move on from Austin Eckler, but they can maybe still bring him back. But also, too, my opinions on running backs in the league is they are definitely replaceable. And so even though Austin Eckler has been a staple for that team. So this is where this is actually going to be a very unique spot here. Because, Ryan, if you could for me, scroll down on the teams, actually, on the teams. So, the Falcons that are there, that could be looking for a quarterback. Then you have Minnesota, Denver, Las Vegas. You can maybe even throw in New Orleans. But I'm also even going to include Seattle here. And I'll get to Seattle a little bit more here a little bit later when they get in the pick. But all those teams are going to be looking for a quarterback. And there's a clear number 3 quarterback in this class, and it's going to be Jaden Daniels here. So I think that they could be this bidding war, starting at pick 5 with the Chargers to the Giants, and then also Tennessee potentially as well. Maybe not the Giants, because the Giants have a clear pick in my mind. But the Chargers, I think, could go a lot of different ways. But I'm actually going to go with my Atlanta Falcons, who went 7-10 again under Arthur Smith. It's a lot to be said here. We are recording this as of Sunday night, so if you're seeing this and Arthur Smith is fired, that in your mind, that could be really good or really bad. I won't get into my opinion. I only know my opinion is that we need a quarterback. We need a quarterback yesterday. So I think we're going to trade up with the Los Angeles Chargers and go and get Jaden Daniels here. I think pick-wise, and this is just off the top of my head here, it looks like 14 going up to number 5. I think that plus a third, and I think a third would be good because we're getting a third at least from Jacksonville, and then throw in maybe like a 5th or 6th. Let me even see how many picks Atlanta has here. Maybe if we even have some extra ones. Yeah, so if we throw like a 5th or a 6th to go up just those couple of spots here, that will still allow us to keep our 2nd. We will still have Jacksonville's 3rd as well. Trade up them for Los Angeles. And this is huge for Los Angeles, and I'll get to that here in a second. But here, Falcons, they'll be able to get Jaden Daniels, be able to get their franchise quarterback. I've admired the passion Desmond Ridder, but I just don't think he is the guy. Actually, I don't think I know he's not the guy. So we'll get to Los Angeles here again in a second. For New York here, these next two picks to me, I think, are fairly obvious. They're going to go with their best offensive lineman available, and to me, I personally think that that's going to be Olu Fashanu, number one. Dude, just an absolute beast. And so Joe Alt is phenomenal, and Tennessee is going to love him. I'm going to go with Tennessee and Joe Alt here. I think that those two picks can be interchangeable, but with both of those teams, well, with New York first, there's so many different ways I feel like they could go. They could go receiver if Malik Neighbors is there. They maybe you can make an argument for tight end because Brock Bowers is just a different tight end prospect. And also, too, you'll kill two birds with one stone. He'll give you a receiving weapon and a guy that can help block, which is what they need tremendously. So, but I'm just going to stick with Olu here. I just Evan Neal has been the guy. He's been injured, and just overall offensive line has just been absolutely atrocious. So they'll I think they'll figure it out, but they just know they need to get more offensive line weapons here. And with Malik Neighbors off the board and Marvin Harris Jr., I think they're going to be on as well. For the Titans here, to me, I think it's personally going to be Joe Alt or Rome Dunze. And I'm going to go with Joe Alt here. Just Tennessee's offensive line has been absolutely atrocious. You almost destroyed the offseason of Will Levis just because of how awful that offensive line is because he just kept getting banged up and his knee almost got absolutely eviscerated against Houston Texans in the first game that they played just because he was constantly under pressure. So you need to protect your young, potentially future franchise quarterback. So I'm going to go with Joe Alt here. Could potentially see Rome Dunze or also Brock Bowers as well. And I think I see DB. I agree with DB in that spot by PFF. I think it's a little bit too early for DB in this situation. So now I've said his name a couple times. I'm actually going to go with Brock Bowers over Rome Dunze here for the Los Angeles Chargers. I think they also could have gone Johnny Newton as well. I think they could have maybe even gone secondary. But Brock Bowers is just going to be he is just another worldly type of prospect here. And I think that's what Justin Herbert needs is going to be that weapon that kind of definitely threatens the middle here. You still have Keenan Allen, who is getting up there in age, I know. You have Mike Williams on contract. He unfortunately towards ACL. Quentin Johnson still needs some development, but showed some flashes. I really like Josh Palmer also. You're going to bring in a new head coach who hopefully is going to be offensive-minded this time. And that is definitely going to be a main story of the offseason for the Los Angeles Chargers. So I think that's going to be an interesting route, I think, for them to go. And they get extra draft capital because they're going to need to and want to have to find more offensive weapons for their franchise quarterback here. And also for the new head coach, they're going to want to be able to rebuild as well and get the pieces that they want in there. So we're a quarter of the way through. Ryan, I need to stop and take a drink of water, but I want to hear your thoughts overall on the draft so far.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with just about all the picks. I mean, all these teams are getting really good players. This was one thing last year that I think we talked about, and there were a lot more players in that like 15 to 35 range that we felt really comfortable with. But then at the top end, there were just a lot of guys that were like, well, this guy is better, but by how much? And I think this year it might be a little bit of the reverse. This is just a really, really solid top of the draft. I mean, you have in my opinion, really four quarterbacks, one of which has not been taken yet in your mock, that are top prospects. You have two offensive tackles that are just absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I mean, the receivers are great. And Brock Bowers is the most complete tight end prospect I think we've seen really ever. I mean, even like you go back to Rob Gronkowski, he had similar hype to Brock Bowers, but had extreme injury concerns. Whereas Brock Bowers, I mean, he had a sprained ankle there at the end of the year, but I mean, is just a really solid all around prospect. Kyle Pitts is another guy like that. Yeah, I mean, I can't really argue with any of these, and I think right now everybody is a little bit lower on Jaden Daniels, but this was a guy that I was high on coming into the season, and I really think that as people watch more and more of his tape, they will really start to see his value. And to me, he is the best at knowing when it's time to scramble, and it's time to go. I will say he probably also is like the most eager to be like, all right, I got through my progressions, now let's go. but he does get through his progressions and he throws the ball when necessary. He runs the ball when he has the advantage in that part of the game. And so yeah, I really like this so far.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's. I think of all the top prospects here, he might be the one that I think has the most volatility. Like I think he has the lowest
Yeah.
floor that's been taken so far. So let's get on now with the Chicago Bears, who are picking again. They picked Marvin Harrison Jr. in the first pick, and a lot of different directions I feel that they could go here. It's I think the one thing for me, and I know they beefed up the defensive line a bunch with getting Montez Sweat in the offseason and then signing him to a long-term deal. But I do feel that they might actually go edge rusher here and try and get both sides of the ball. I honestly like their offensive line a lot. If there's going to be an area that they improve on, I think it might be center. They can do that later on in the draft, especially then with the extra draft capital. So there's been a guy that I just have really started to like a lot. And I think this is where Dallas Turner's going to come off the board here. I think you pair him up with Montez Sweat, and then you just absolutely solidify that whole defensive front. They had one of the best run defenses in the league just because how dominant their defensive line was. And Dallas Turner has a lot of Will Anderson Jr. traits. It was a yin and yang when they were both on the field in Alabama. So I really like that option there for them. With New York Jets, I'm going to go with tackle here. And as of right now, I'm still scouting some of the tackles here. I feel that they're going to go with the best tackle that they feel best fits their needs. To me right now, I look at J.C. Latham and just see how explosive that he is and just how athletic he is. He still needs some work, but to be honest, he's significantly better than all the other options that they have in New York right now. And so I know they see receiver there. I could see Rome Odunze potentially. I'll also go with this pick, but if you're Aaron Rodgers, it's not only even just Aaron Rodgers, but whoever's going to be after Aaron Rodgers, they're going to need an offensive line in front of them. And so offensive line wasn't the reason why Rodgers tore his ACL, but I think it was the reason. Mike. Oh, sorry. I do believe it was the reason that Zach Wilson had no chance of being successful. Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian, none of the guys were good. It's like, so I'm not like I'm giving them a benefit of the doubt just a little bit because of how atrocious that offensive line was. But even Breece Hall couldn't really be like he was successful, especially considering how horrid that offensive line was. So I think they are going to go with offensive line here. Minnesota, to me, similar. I think that they are going to have to focus on the interior, which they can do later on in the draft here. But Johnny Newton, I think, is just an absolutely phenomenal prospect.
It's Jerson Newton.
No, I know, but I call him Johnny. Also, other people on YouTube call him Johnny. Is his nickname not Johnny?
I don't know. I've only ever heard it called Jerson Newton.
Oh, I've seen other people on the internet call him Johnny. If it's not Johnny, I don't know, but you know who I'm talking about. The defensive lineman from Illinois, absolute stud. Because one thing why Minnesota's defense was so successful was just because Brian Flores, it was just a kamikaze style approach, just blitzing all the time. I think one thing Newton will allow them to do is to not have to blitz as much because he can create his own pressure. He has those Aaron Donald like traits. Who he will at one point in his career, eventually he will mandate a double team just to try and slow him down, which will allow for other guys and other opportunities to create pressure on the quarterback here. And in the division that they're in with Justin Fields and how quick that he is, Jordan Love seems to be developing into that Packers quarterback that unfortunately we all know to expect. Detroit Lions have one of the most potent offenses in the league, and one of the best offensive lines in the league. So they're going to need a way to be able to drop back and take pressure off of their secondary, but not just blitzing all the stinking time. So I'm going to go there with Johnny Newton or Jerson Newton. My apologies, Ryan. So here with Denver, I think this is going to be extremely unique on which way they go, because Russell Wilson at this point, by all means, he's not going to be coming back to Denver. It looks like he's going to be released so they can save a lot of money with their cap space in the offseason, especially over the next couple of years. So is it too early for a quarterback to come off at this point, because to me, there's a clear separation between, well, one, the top two, then you have Jaden Daniels, and then you have Michael Penix, Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy if he comes, Quinn Ewers if he comes, some of the other guys, Michael Pratt, I think that Riley Leonard, I believe, from Duke has also declared. There's just maybe not, maybe he's coming back. So
No, he entered the transfer portal, I believe.
that's what it was. I remember seeing his name. Either way, he is nowhere near those top three guys. But there is going to be this core group of guys that are going to go at some point from the middle of the first round to the middle of the second round or late second round. And I'm still determining when and who is going to come off first here. And I will say Sean Payton does want to go and get his guy that he can go and mold. And if there's one thing when scouting Russell Wilson and looking at this offense, it was either dink and dunk type, just hit the running back in the flat, check down type football, or just an absolute bomb throw. Let's just go deep. And that's kind of what I got from Bo Nix. I feel like from Oregon this year, a lot more dink and dunk type football. He had the highest ever college football completion percentage season, and it was an extremely efficient offense. And I think Sean Payton is going to want to get a rookie quarterback here to kind of mold and kind of grow. And there's a lot of the traits and poise, I would say, of a quarterback that can develop on his intermediate throws. He does have a cannon of an arm. And so I'm actually going to go with Bo Nix here over Michael Penix, because then on top of that, Bo Nix doesn't have the injury history as Michael Penix. He also, I feel, is going to be a little bit more accurate on some of those soft touch throws. Michael Penix has a cannon of an arm, one of the best deep ball throwers that I've ever seen. But I think, and as an IU fan, I hate saying this, but he does struggle a little bit with the touch throws. I think in a Sean Payton offense like this, he's going to want to have that type of capability. And so I think Michael Penix would be perfect for a Minnesota-style offense with it's just all these speedster receivers that you can go and hit these post-route offenses, hit these receivers on post routes, create these deep balls. I think that's the style of offense that's going to fit him a little bit better. And so moving on now to the Raiders here. So many different ways that they could end up going. I am going to end up – I do think that they need corner here, and this is where I think the first corner is going to come off of the board. I am going to go with Kool-Aid. I thought that he's had a good I thought he played well in the Rose Bowl. Thought he's had a good overall career at Alabama. Could also see Nate Wiggins going here, and Terrion Arnold's also coming up the board a lot as well. So Saints on the clock here now. They just missed out on making the playoffs here and winning the NFC South. But one thing for sure, especially to starting like the my off-season kind of recap and prepping for that, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you can see when all of our off-season recaps come out for each team. But when doing the Saints, one of the most recent ones, they have so many offensive linemen that are starting that are hitting the free agency market. And at the same time, as of yesterday, when I was looking at this on January 6th, they had like negative $770 million in protected cap space going into 2024. So by that means, how I look at that is some of these offensive linemen are not going to come back, and they need to get younger just in general. So to me, they're going to go with an offensive lineman in this one. And let me just quickly double check just to make sure. I think they're going to go with offensive tackle. There's a lot of good offensive tackles here. And to me, as much as I hate to see a Georgia boy go, Marius Mims, to me, I think is going to be the guy. Super athletic, great career at Georgia. They're going to need that guy to protect Derek Carr, and then whoever the young quarterback is going to go and follow him. Also, too, if Alvin Kamara comes back, he is their number one guy, and they're going to need to be able to create running lanes for him and also try and keep him healthy. So going to go with Marius Mims here. Colts, this one's pretty simple for me. I actually really like the Colts offensive line. They could improve a little bit maybe on the interior, just a little bit, like maybe just add depth and get younger. I know they got Blake Freeland last year in the draft, and he was playing. I think he had an okay season so far. Hopefully to see that development here. And you know what? I say this, I was going to go corner, but the fact that my boy Romeo fell all the way to here is kind of crazy. And if this actually happens, I think the Colts could wait on the corner here. That they're going to go with Rome Odunze. They're absolutely going to go with Rome Odunze for sure. So I think Denver also could have potentially taken Romeo there as well. So Seattle, Seattle, once again, I think could go a lot of different directions. Tackles, I like their tackles with Abraham Lucas and Charles Cross. So there's a lot of different ways that they over the past couple of years from watching their draft, they've gone with best player available. They went with Devin Witherspoon and Jackson Smith-Njigba last year. Even then going with Derek Hall as well in the second round, and then somebody else, Zach Charbonnet. Those are just really athletic guys that they know that they can build a team around and add a lot of great depth here. And then when I look at the Seattle Seahawks team, interior offensive line is definitely one, but then also I would say defensive interior as well. And so I actually just creating that overall just general pass rush. I like their secondary, and I do also like their receiving room as well, and what they build out for. So I am actually going to go with an edge rusher here because I don't feel there's a good defensive lineman overall that could be taken outside of Jersey Newton being taken off the board here. So they do like to have bigger guys, I would say, instead of like the speed edge rushers. And I've been very impressed with Braylon Trice. I think maybe he might jump up the board here. I know this one might be controversial. I'm curious to hear what Seattle Seahawks fans think of this. I know he's a Washington guy. He's a local guy. But I think Braylon Trice kind of fits the mold a little bit more of the type of defense that Seattle has in my mind compared to Chop Robinson, who kind of reminds me of Micah Parsons, speedster edge rusher off the edge. So curious about this one. I'll definitely be curious. I'll be thinking about this one tomorrow if this was a good pick or not. So let's move on to Jacksonville, though. And to me, Jacksonville, I just think it's going to be offensive line. And Tulisi Fuaga right there, I think he's going to help out with protecting Trevor Lawrence, but also he's really good in the run game as well. They got Anton Harrison, who I think they can transfer over to the left tackle spot. Cam Robinson, I think, unfortunately, has been hurt. I think you might be able to move him inside as well. I want to double check to see his size. 6'6", 325. You just move him inside. That's something that maybe we watched on. But they just need to protect Trevor Lawrence, and maybe offensive line might not be the best pick here. I also think maybe going Nate Wiggins, I think would be a good pick as well, helping out with that secondary. So here with the Bengals on the clock, T. Higgins is in the free agency market. Tyler Boyd is also in the free agency market as well. And when I look at the type of receivers that they would be looking for here, they could get Keon Coleman, Ryan Thomas Jr., A.D. Mitchell, Emeka Egbuka. But there's still going to be a lot of guys I think that they can go and address there in the second round as well. If I look at offensive tackle, though, they just always need offensive lineman depth here. I do really like Troy Fautanu. I think they're going to go with Troy Fautanu here at this pick here. Keep developing that offensive lineman as well. So I know it might be a little bit of a stretch here, but I think he's going to work his way up, especially into if he has a good performance against Michigan coming in. So those are all the picks of the teams who will not be playing any more games in the 2023 NFL season. They are officially now in the offseason. Ryan, what do you think of the picks so far?
Yeah, I really liked the first 8. I was not as high on some of the guys in the second 11 or second 10 picks.
Yep.
I like Tulisi Fuaga better than Amarius Mims and J.C. Latham personally. Both of those guys, while they are freak athletes, I do feel like get bullied at times, despite being the freaks that they are. And I think some of that is just they're very young, and that will kind of get resolved over time. I just feel like Tulisi Fuaga is a more complete product, and like just from what I've seen, is he's just almost immovable there,
Yeah.
and he's probably the best run blocker in this draft class. And so that I like Jared Verse maybe a little bit more than Dallas Turner. I just think Jared Verse he plays with more power and like kind of speed to power than some of the other guys.
Yeah.
And he was the leader of one of the best defenses in college football, and like the tape definitely shows why. He's a fantastic player. Kool-Aid McKinstry and Nate Wiggins are kind of the same. I don't have either of these corners as high as this, and Yeah, I think Braylon Trice is a first round pick, but I definitely think he's in the 20s for me. Just because he is a little bit bigger, he's a little bit slower. He doesn't have great flexibility off the edge, and
Yeah.
uh, he's going to be pretty system specific because of his size. So
Well, and that's what I felt, and maybe I'm misremembering the Seahawks defensive system, but I feel like they have a little bit more of the bigger guys that they
they
go
do.
and bring in. That's why I thought that he would be a better fit compared
Yeah.
to somebody like Chop Robinson or Jared Verse. And Jared Verse, according to Tankathon right now, is listed at, where do you go, 6'4", 248. So I kind of put that in. I mean, to me,
Yeah.
like,
He plays bigger.
248, and that's fair. He definitely does play bigger. So a lot of different ways I think this go. Those top 8 picks to me, I hope I'm not like just like confirmation bias, but like I just think those 8 players are going to go somewhere within those first
Yeah.
8 picks, and then
I
after
agree.
that, because you're right, that Bears
The,
is just going to be the butterfly effect. That Bears 9th pick, who knows what's going to happen from there.
yeah. No, I agree.
So let's get on to the Packers here, and the Packers made the playoffs with everything against them. First year as a full season starting quarterback here. Super young receiving room. Aaron Jones missed, I would say, half the season. David Bakhtiari, their star left tackle, was out, and they've got a young offensive line. And so they have I do think an underrated defense, and I'm glad to see them starting to play extremely well towards the end of the season. But there's one thing coming into this free agency is that a lot of their secondary is going to be are going to be free agents, or they were hurt a lot this year. And to me, if Nate Wiggins was off the board by this point, I think Cooper DeJean would be a perfect fit. But I'm not going to pick him here. I'm going to pick Nate Wiggins because I think Green Bay Packers right now, if I remember correctly, are sitting at 10 to 20 million of estimated cap space. So I don't think they're going to be able to sign back everybody in their secondary. I also think Nate Wiggins is going to be an amazing prospect. He's as I've liked what I've seen on film. I think that as he develops, I think he can grow to be one of the better cornerbacks in the league. I think him across from Jair Alexander would be a lot of fun. However, I will say this: if he is gone by now, I do feel Cooper DeJean would be a great pick for Green Bay here, just because of his overall versatility. He could play nickel, he could play outside, he could play safety, which is also a huge need as well. And I almost went with him here. Also, he's a white defender from Iowa, which they love. Guys in Green Bay, they just love those guys. So, but Nate Wiggins, though, to me, I think is just too good to pass up. And hypothetically, if Wiggins doesn't work out as a corner, as an outside corner, I think they could potentially transition him to safety, which is what I think a lot of cornerbacks could go and do anyways. So I think Cooper DeJean is going to fall a little bit here. Coming here with Tampa Bay, they're playing Philadelphia in the first round of the playoffs here, so potentially could win with how poorly Philadelphia's been playing. But go check out our prediction video so you can see who we think is going to go and win that when that is released. But man, Tampa Bay, I agree. They need running back, they need tight end, they need interior offensive line, edge rusher, essentially everybody in the defense. And I will say, I do think this is where Jared Verse is going to go here. I was stuck between him and Leatu Latu, who is a little bit older and has arguably been one of the best edge rushers this year, but he has had several injuries. And I think that's going to have him drop a little bit. It's even why you're seeing here on PFF, his ranking is dropping down. I think people are starting to realize that. So Cardinals are now on the board again. They picked Malik Neighbors, 4th overall with their pick. And they just need just defensive help, just absolutely defensive help. Defensive line, linebacker, cornerback. And if you can scroll down a little bit, I want to see who else is available here. Tiernan Arnold, Chris Braswell, Troy Franklin. He's an offensive guy. I haven't seen Chop Robinson in a second. Has he dropped off a lot?
Yeah, he hasn't had that great of tape.
Oh yeah, no.
Against
I wasn't going to pick him. I actually, I think I talked myself into. Oh, sorry. I think I talked myself into Cooper DeJean here for this Cardinals pick. Very similar to I think what I said why Green Bay could go for him. As a team that just needs a lot, I think this guy is kind of a Swiss Army knife when it comes to that secondary. I think you can utilize him a lot. in different areas. And so if you need him to play safety, I think he can play strong and free safety. Maybe not free safety. I don't know if he's quick enough to be the free safety to cover that whole field. But I think he can play corner, nickel. You can just utilize him throughout. And with how hard Arizona played, I think he's also going to be a great guy for that overall organization and just the philosophy I think that Jonathan Good is going to want to bring in. So now with Los Angeles Rams on the clock here, they also need a lot of defensive help as well. And if scroll down just a little bit, I'm trying to remember to see who all is available here as well. I need to watch Rakestraw a little bit more. But I want to go a little bit of a different route here. I know they did draft Stetson Bennett, who unfortunately I hope all is going well with Stetson and his recovery. But I'm a big Michael Penix fan just because our family, we're IU fans. And if there's only a few offenses in my mind that I think Michael Penix would fit in, only just because of his injury history and some of his lack of mobility, I think the Rams are one of them. We see how quick Puka Nacua is, how quick Tutu Atwell is. I know Cooper Kupp is still there, but he is getting older. Like eventually he won't be there anymore. And with Sean McVay and that style of offense and that quick type of speed, get the ball out as quickly as possible, create separation. And then with Kyren Williams in the backfield, I think Penix is a guy that you could develop and be in that system. And potentially they could go lay out to Latu as well and pair him up with Aaron Donald. You could go with Terry Arnold also. But I also think, too, if you're picking for the future as well, Penix does have one of the biggest arms I think I've ever seen. And he can slot it into any route, any corner. And so I could just imagine him and Puka Nacua just tearing it up. So maybe that's a little bit too early. I think Penix is going to be – I think this is about as early as I think Penix could go, in my opinion. But I could also see him as the draft process goes on, see him falling out of the first round and going into the earlier or maybe middle seconds. So moving on to the Steelers here. Man, they need so much help. They need an offensive coordinator. They need a lot. So this is actually where I am going to have Terry Arnold come off the board here. They do need some secondary help overall. If it wasn't for how dominant that defensive front is, I think their secondary would get destroyed every single week. They do need some offensive line help, but I'm not too impressed with some of the other offensive linemen that are available. Also, as well, they spent a first-round pick on Broderick Jones last year, and I think if they really need help, it's going to be a little bit more on the interior. So I'm going to go with corner here. So come up with the Bills, and we're watching this game right now. It is currently in the third quarter. They're now 7-14. So it was looking like this is where they would still be projected to be picked, but we'll have to see. We'll just kind of go with them on an as-need basis. So offensive line has improved tremendously this year. I think one of the stats I heard Chris Collinsworth say is that the one of two offensive lines that all five offensive linemen have played the entire year. And I think it's shown overall in the overall performance. They've improved in the running game. Josh Allen seems to have had better protections, not making better decisions every single time, but, you can't win them all. But I do feel that the receiving room has improved enough to where they wouldn't take a receiver here because I think that they're going to be able to take one in the second round. That's a lot. But there's so many different options that I think that they could end up going here. And so it's great prospects, too. Like, I love Brian Thomas Jr. Love just all things. Troy Franklin. I think A.D. Mitchell could be good. They make it like Buka. And so, but I think all those guys, they're going to be going up closer to the second round here. I will say, I do think they're going to go secondary. They have just been absolutely decimated in the secondary here. And if I go and look to see who is available, just off the top of my head here, I do think this guy from Toledo, I've started to watch just a little bit. He's got freakish athletes. Just characteristics. Quinion Mitchell from Toledo, I think he's going to work his way up here. They need some just younger defensive talent overall. And depth. The fact that this defense is still playing this well with all the injuries that they have had. So I'm going to go with Quinion Mitchell. I think he's going to work his way up. I'm looking forward to watching him at the Senior Bowl. He'll be there. Could maybe have gone Kamari Lassiter also, and then who was the guy from Miami?
Cameron Kitchens.
Cameron Kitchens also could have been another good one because Jordan Poyer is also getting up there as well. But I think they're going to go with Quinton Mitchell. He might have a little bit more versatility and hit the size. So I will say, though, I just mentioned Cameron Kitchens' names, and this is going to be where he comes off the board. The secondary for Philadelphia has been absolutely atrocious and been decimated with injuries here. They could go corner, so it as well at this spot. I think Kamari Lassiter, that also maybe would have been a more fun pick just because of the Georgia connection. But I'm going to go with Cameron Kitchens here and focusing on the safety spot. So Kansas City, what receiver do I like here? I mean, I think they're going to go with best receiver available. I think this is going to be kind of the start of that next wave of receivers to come off the board because I think Rome Odunze was the last one I took, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I took
at 15.
And this is going to be kind of how I feel this draft will go. Is a lot of these teams know that these guys a lot of them will be available towards the end of the first round or mid-second round. So if there's a guy that they want to go and get, and a lot of these guys have great traits that I think are just a lot of different teams will like for different reasons. So if we scroll down here, let me pull this up. So many different ways they could go. To me personally, I think Xavier Worthy is a little bit too small, and I just don't know if he's going to fit. To me personally, I don't think he had as great of a year because he's been hurt. But I think a guy like Emeka Egbuka, I think would absolutely play extremely well with Patrick Mahomes. I think that's the kind of guy that they're looking for here. Good route runner, shifty. I think can create his own separation. So I'm going to go with Emeka Egbuka here. They don't need that big X Mike Williams type receiver. They have that with Travis Kelce, and by Travis Kelce, I mean like he's their stud guy, their main guy. So they need a guy that can go and create space, make defenses be like, hey, we have to watch this guy as well. Then going to open up opportunities for Travis Kelce, or then when they focus on Travis Kelce, Emeka Egbuka can go and get his own. So I think he's going to work well within that Andy Reid type offense. I think he's going to also mesh really well with Patrick Mahomes. So Texans are now on the clock here, and the Texans. No, this is the Texans' first pick, actually, isn't it? Yeah. So winners of the AFC South, absolutely shocking that they won. So they get a rematch against the Cleveland Browns here, and so to me, I'm looking at it, and cornerbacks have come on strong. Derek Stingley Jr. has had a great season overall, and just D'Amico Ryans has done a wonderful job with that team. And so I feel like they can go and get defensive line a little bit later. They're starting to see maybe a little bit of the run on. They have Nico Collins. Tank Dell's going to come back, and he's going to be that receiver that you can just lean on and rely on here. I also think they're going to go receiver here. I think they're going to go with I'll go with Troy Franklin here. I think Troy Franklin's going to be a good complement to Nico Collins and Tank Dell and what they both have to offer. Nico Collins, to me, is that X receiver, that guy that could go and do deep routes and also be on the outside a lot. I'll Tank Dell. I think they can move him around. They can be on the slot. I think Troy Franklin would be a good complement for in between. So I'm going to go with Troy Franklin at this time here. So what's your thoughts on that? Because on my last two picks here.
I like it. You have Tank Dell in the slot. He's really shifty and he's going to be extremely hard to cover. Nico Collins is your traditional X. And then you have Troy Franklin as your Z receiver, who's going to be coming in and usually is going to be off the ball. And one of my big concerns with Troy Franklin is just that he's like 185 pounds at 6'3". And that being off the ball is going to allow him to have better advantages on those releases that I think will be favorable for him. And when you look at the season that Nico Collins is having, Tank Dell was fantastic when he was playing. I think you throw the third monster in there on top of Dalton Schultz already. That would be a really solid receiving core there for C.J. Stroud.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. Let's wrap this up here in these final 5 picks. The Lions, once again, I do agree that maybe the interior is where they might need to improve on. But if anything, when it comes to that offensive line, it looks like I'm not going to pronounce his full name. My apologies, I wouldn't be able to pronounce it. But Holly Matei, I believe I pronounced that correctly, got hurt. And I believe he's also hitting free agency as well. So they do need to beef up the defensive interior. I do agree with that. But I also feel like the secondary as well is going to be an area that they address just because they had suffered on some injuries. And so I do feel that secondary is in play here for them. But I'm actually think that they are going to go with a receiver here. And Brian Thomas Jr., so they have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have Jameson Williams. They have those two speedsters, those guys that they can work and kind of maneuver all throughout the field. But Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be that huge receiver that can go and win those jump balls. That's what he was at LSU. So I think that adding him then into this offense, I think now they have all different types of receivers. Then you have Sam Laporta as well. I think they'd have the full receiver threat when it comes to that room. And I say it also, too, because there's not also anybody else that I like for the defensive interior for them that they might not be able to go and get later. You could maybe get another edge rusher here with Laiatu Latu, who has fallen, or Chris Braswell. But I think you add that. He's just going to be a different type of receiver for defenses to have to match up on. While at the same time, James Williams, he has that speed that they've started to utilize a lot more in the second half of the season. Amon-Ra St. Brown should be a Pro Bowler every single year. He's one of the best receivers in the league. So I think you have Brian Thomas Jr. here to this team. This offense then as well now with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery is just absolutely ridiculous. So Lions here, I think this is where Laiatu Latu is going to come off the board. They don't need edge rusher. If it wasn't for Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips getting some, unfortunately, devastating injuries, he's at the very top.
I know. You don't want to pick an offensive lineman.
No, I mean they could. They absolutely could. I think he's going to be too good of a prospect to pass up here, and I think with their next pick would be the offensive lineman category. So, but they could go offensive lineman here as well. I'm just thinking as well, if you look at it, I mean, they lost Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, and they lost both of them so late into the season. Who knows what
That's
they
true.
will be like in 2024, what the development is going to be like, especially Bradley Chubb. I mean, he tore his ACL on New Year's Eve. So Odell Beckham Jr. didn't tear his ACL. He tore his ACL in February, and he missed the whole next season. Now,
Yeah.
you can make arguments that there are stipulations just because he was a free agent and the teams don't want to sign him for what he was asking. So I get that. I think Jordan Morgan or another offensive lineman. I mean, if I went offensive lineman here, especially offensive tackle, who would be? I took Mims already, took Fiaga, took Fatanu. Graham Barton potentially, because Graham Barton has that versatility to come in. Kingsley Matia, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Also could be a good one with his size and speed. Jordan Morgan, I think, could be good as well.
I also like Tyler Guyton. He's a really athletic guy that I think would fit well in their system.
I think all those options, all those guys would be an absolutely appropriate pick for right there for picking at 29. So we'll have to see. I went with Laiatu Latu just because he is, for how good of a season he's had and how talented he is. Yes, I think he's fallen enough, in my opinion, to where it's like, okay, like a team's got to take a shot on him as well. So, and he's just power and speed combination, getting him at the end of the first round, I think would just be an absolute steal. So, but offensive line would absolutely be huge here for a Miami team. So, Dallas, defensive interior here, linebacker, cornerback. Interior as well, but they can get that later in the draft. So see, now this is the point where there's so many different options here that it's just gonna be absolutely tough. Keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. Let's go with keep on going. They have enough tight ends.
Yeah.
scroll up and let's go. They took Maisie Smith last year with the first overall pick, so I don't think they're going to go even this year with the first overall pick. Let's go with corner here. Let's go with Rakestraw Jr. This is a pick, a player I do need to do a little bit more research on, but I think this is kind of more of a pick of like I could see them going this route just in general. Stephon Gilmore, they got him as a rental, a very cheap rental that they've gotten great value out of from Indianapolis. But I think this is kind of, to me, when I look at this, more just the type of player I think that they're going to go after, or the position that they're going to go after. So now for San Francisco, Trent Williams is getting up there in age, and they are going to have to go and try and find a replacement. Also, just in general, it's like if I had to have a critique, watching that Ravens game, offensive line got bested. So if they're going to try and be Super Bowl champ like that, they're going to want to try and have every single edge on them. I will say sneaky spot here, I think, to potentially take another receiver. How good this class is. They know like this next waves of receivers, they're not going to be there. And I just say that just to keep adding depth, just top talented depth. But that all being said, I do think they're going to go Jordan Morgan here from Arizona. And then lastly, Ravens on the clock, ending out the first round here. They got Zay Flowers in the first round, which has been absolutely phenomenal. I do think that they could go receiver again. Secondary as well also could be a good one as well. But I don't really know if I truly love secondary options here compared to some of the other guys that might be on the board here. And I will say, comparative to, I actually do believe that this is where A.D. Mitchell could come off the spot. He's a little bit different of a receiver than Zay Flowers. And I think that can help create space for Zay Flowers and Lamar Jackson to work. If they want to go with the guy and just go full speed, something similar, I guess, what Miami's doing, I could absolutely see them going with someone like Xavier Worthy in this spot here as well. Or maybe even Jalen Polk if he's working his way up there. So a lot of different ways they could go here. And very curious to see from this draft class, and after doing several months of research, so when it's our final one on Monday, April 25th, like the Monday right before the draft. I think that actually it's the 24th. But all the work that we would do compared to the one that we just did then to now, it's 22nd actually. But very curious to see how wrong I'm going to be on this draft. But that was my first one. So, and I was going to take A.D. Mitchell there.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's analyze it here. Ryan, I just want to get your overall thoughts. What are some of the picks that you like, dislike, and would never want me to do again?
So let's start with the ones that I like. I didn't think. Did you take Terry Nardold there?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm zooming out so you can see the whole thing.
Try a little bit more.
I'll start at the top and then we'll just scroll down. I like Talise Fuaga here at 17. I had him rated higher than the other two tackles that were taken before him, Amarius Mims and J.C. Latham. I thought the Bo Nix pick was high. I am like so hot and cold with him as a prospect just because of he had this really great completion percentage, but Oregon's offense was very quarterback friendly in the sense like they throw a lot of balls around the line of scrimmage, and then I think they use a lot of misdirection to open up spaces down the field rather than forcing their quarterback to make harder reads that are that he's going to have to make it at the next level. The conversion worked pretty well for Justin Herbert. Will it work for Bo Nix or not? That is yet to be determined. Bo Nix does not have the same caliber arm as Justin Herbert. Yeah. Granted, not a lot of guys do. That is one there. I like Rome Odunze to the Colts. That to me was one. Michael Pittman is a free agent. Alec Pierce hasn't quite worked out the same way that they would have liked. If they do retain Michael Pittman, that would be a ginormous receiving group. All of those guys would be huge, and then you'd have Josh Downs in there, who's like 5'9". So yeah. I haven't seen too much of Rakestraw. I do like the A.D. Mitchell pick there to close things out. And I do like the Chiefs picking Egbuka. Yeah, no, I like most of these picks. I like the Fatanu pick because I think he can kick in and play guard as well as while Jordan Morgan is there with Trent Williams, Jordan Morgan can play guard too.
Hmm.
So I like the versatility there. I think all of those offensive linemen will get good ample opportunity to come in and contribute right away. So yeah,
Yeah.
no, I like most of the picks. So
It's going to be fascinating because to me, Brock Bowers then to me is the one. Like everybody else above them, I would be shocked if they didn't get picked in the top 8. From
hmm,
Dallas Turner on, like a lot of those guys will be picked in the first round, but where I have no idea,
yeah,
absolutely no idea.
and
There's gonna be so many unnecessary trade, not unnecessary trades, unexpected trades. Sorry, unexpected trades. Uh, that's going to happen just like every single year that we're just not going to expect. And to me, the top 10, I feel like the top 10, like the Falcons trading up, I think is very possible, but also the Jets or the Vikings, Broncos, or Raiders want to trade up and go and get Jaden Daniels because he's going to be the last guy that could be available. Uh, because then to your point though, you're going to be risking it with Bo Nix, or then you're going to be risking it then with Michael Penix or JJ McCarthy or whoever's next. If you're trying to get that next quarterback, and it's going to be interesting then to see just these unexpected moves and teams who make a move that they maybe don't feel comfortable with, but just to go and get the guy because these prospects in this draft class compared to last year are totally different
yeah,
and so much more. I don't say so much more elite, but it just there's a lot more hype. I feel there's a lot more hype around this class. So teams
yeah.
might do something that they might feel uncomfortable with just to try and make a big splash.
Yeah, yeah, and that's to me. I think one of the things that I like to do, especially since we've started doing this podcast, and I'm gonna go ahead and hide this, is kind of like see where like these guys compare to like the last few classes, right? And I think the wide receiver class is really good to talk about because I have 5 guys in this wide receiver class ahead of all of the first round wide receivers last year.
Mm-hmm.
That's Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Brian Thomas Jr., and Troy Franklin. I think I like all of those guys more than I liked Jackson Smith-Njigba, Quentin Johnson, Zay Flowers, and Jordan Addison. Now, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily better players. I just like Martin Harrison Jr. is far and away the best receiving prospect we've seen. I think even he might be a better prospect than Jamar Chase. Uh,
Yeah.
to put that in perspective. But then like the other guys, they all do things differently, and I just really like the translation of these guys into the NFL because Jackson Smith-Njigba, remember, well, like he runs great routes and he has great hands, but is he fast enough? Zay Flowers was, uh, he had kind of the drops issues. He didn't run super well rounded routes. And it was a little bit of kind of a I don't say a bull in a china shop because he's 5'9", 180, but like he just kind of ran around recklessly at times. Now, obviously, that's worked out for them. Jordan Addison was 5'11", 175, and ran the 4.49
Mm-hmm.
40, and that was just like, okay, that is like 14th percentile in the NFL. And Quentin Johnson is probably one of the least developed route runners that has been taken in the first round since N'Keal Harry.
No,
Um,
I remember
like,
too. There's all that hype, and it's like they were looking at his stats, and I'm like, man, all of his stats came in like 3 games. Yeah,
yeah,
he has the physical characteristics, but I don't know if I would take him first round overall.
yeah, yeah. Whereas like those 5 guys I just named, even like some of the other guys, I'm like, okay, like these guys are going to translate to the NFL. It's just how productive will they really be, and uh, like even these tackles, like Joe Alden, Olufashanu, like Panay Sewell, uh, and like I'm trying to think of other tackles that have been that hyped up
Yeah,
um, since since they came into the draft, and uh, yeah, like this is a really loaded class, and I think there's going to be a lot of teams that get some really solid players coming out. So
I agree. I agree. It was nice to get the first one of the books.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and wrap this one up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Tyler and I, we have a mock draft coming out every Monday. We are jumping on that mock draft Monday train. So if you guys want to go ahead, like and subscribe, get notified whenever we create new content and whenever one of those mock drafts comes out, you will get notified. Other than that, we will see you guys next time.